Thank you everyone for joining. No, I don't know where you're joining from which time zone. So for some of you, it might be afternoon. So let's not keep you waiting any longer. Today, we'll have just a short introduction from me about, again, Digital X Catalog that I just mentioned. And then, of course, the most interesting part will be solutions. You'll hear from Reina Otsuka, global lead for digital for the planet. And then you'll learn about the transparency solution from Richemond, Assie. Just a little bit on the human security and digital X 3.0 and why we organizing it now. So first of all, human security. So what does it mean, right? So it is about shifting focus from protecting states to protecting people. So it's not this idea came about maybe about in the 90s. Some say it could be even a bit earlier. But essentially, the idea is that the security isn't just about protecting borders or protecting, people from conflict. It's also about whether people have the agency to share their own lives, to shape their own lives safely and essentially make decisions for themselves. And the more our lives move online, or rather have the online and digital dimension, the more opportunities we have with it, but also the new risks arise with it. Now, the digital transformation of human security, uh, it's again, it touches on so many different aspects of our lives, right? So the way we learn, the way we access healthcare, the way we manage money, get support during crisis. So it's now increasingly changed with the digital technologies, of course, at a different pace, depending on the country, but the trajectory is there for everyone, right? And so access to when sometimes access is unequal or systems are not designed inclusively, then that can really just worsen the existing inequalities that we're seeing. And that's why sometimes we may see countries doing better on traditional development indicators, but people still don't necessarily feel secure in their daily lives, just again because the digital dimension still feels a little bit like missing some of the critical elements and safety protections. And then comes the technology governance. And good technology governance is so important because digital systems have long-term consequences. They have consequences for digital sovereignty, for resilience, for equity and equality. And then when countries rely on opaque contracts or inflexible proprietary systems, they risk locking themselves into technologies that can't adapt or are not very sustainable. So that's why it's important to make technology decisions strategically and consider whether you choose an open technology versus proprietary solutions, versus whether you build the technologies versus buy something that's already shaped, so it's already made, right? Or build something on your own. And then, of course, the importance on local skills, and that's how governments can strengthen their ability to manage the digital future. Now, here comes the open source. And open source contribution to human security. So open source offers a different way of working with technology. So it's built on transparency, it's built on adaptability, and it's built on shared benefits. Now, that allows communities also to understand better how the tools work. That allows to adapt, again, the tools to the local needs, and also share this improvement with others, because one of the biggest benefits of course, open source technologies is that when you improve the tool in your context, then you kind of everyone can benefit from this improvement, right? So you're contributing to the shared technology that can again help others also deploy something that's better. Um, and so and today we see that there's already a lot of open source solutions that power digital infrastructure, but there is still more potential in how it can be deployed, in what context, and how we approach this. So there's still some gaps, that we see in. So in some contexts, there is lacking the ecosystem support. Sometimes it's just the procurement guidance, sometimes it's the technical training, sometimes it's just, the need to receive neutral advice and just also the skills to provide this advice. So without that support, the digital investments can increase dependency or lead to systems that countries, again, struggle to maintain because maintaining these digital solutions is such a core part of the conversation that is sometimes you see as an afterthought a little bit, even though, because, it's easy to get excited about a new solution. It's easy to really think hard about the first phase, the implementation. But then comes, the day-to-day life and is thinking it's like, well, okay, but how do we sustain it in a year, in 5 years, and 10, does it need to be there in 10 years, etc. So like all this needs to be considered in the beginning. So Digital X 3.0, so it's our new iteration of the Digital X catalog. So, and it is designed to help close those gaps by connecting countries, communities with proven reusable solutions. So essentially, it's a catalog of vetted open source solutions that address various aspects of human development. That you can look into, and again, and then we can help you connect with a solution provider and see whether this solution is right for you, right? So we've done the screening, we've done the vetting of the solutions, so that is a curated catalog that you can look into. And so Digital X support, so it goes beyond the showcasing technology. We support team in adapting solutions locally, so that can help reduce the vendor lock-in, that can help build capacity, special local capacity, very important. And then ultimately that will lead to strengthen digital systems for human security and for people who need it most. So I encourage you to look at the Digital X catalog. I'll drop the link in the chat as well. And with that, I'll hand it over to Reina, who will introduce open solutions that are available for the planet. Reina, over to you.
Great. Thank you so much, Daria. And good morning from New York. Good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. I'm just going to share my screen now, and hopefully it works. Sorry. Great. So thank you so much, Daria, for the introduction. And I'm very glad to be here to talk about some of the work we've been doing in the environment sector within UNDP. And I will just start from a few slides to kind of talk about this concept of digital public infrastructure, which was one of the themes that was kind of at the forefront today. So digital public infrastructure is a fairly new thinking, and just like we have public physical infrastructure, like roads or bridges, which the government would provide, and then on top of that, things like market or trade or academic knowledge exchange, all of these things happen. Similarly, in the digital world, we have something called the digital public infrastructure. And these are, for example, things like digital ID or digital payment, data exchange, but we also thought that it can be applied for environmental sustainability. And again, the approach here is instead of building siloed solutions that generally use very similar elements of data into a platform approach where you can have different data in different places, but there is this public infrastructure layer that brings all of these different data in one place so that it can be consumed and used for building new innovation on top of it at the top. This is just one example. I'm just showing you in front of you in the environment field, where you will have a lot of ecosystem data, a lot of environmental interventions use land data, for example, carbon data. And instead of, again, each different system, building everything from scratch and building all the data from scratch, what is kind of this infrastructure layer that can help all of these environmental interventions start to innovate and build digital systems on top of it. And one big issue is that the climate and nature crises are interconnected, but ecosystem data or climate data, social data are often siloed across projects and services. And As a result, decision-making also happens in isolation, which leads to missed opportunities for coordinated and nature-positive climate outcomes. So we think that this digital public infrastructure thinking can help integrate the data from different sources to build society-wide capacity or capabilities for, again, better decision making. And just a few examples, in case you're not that familiar with environmental intervention, types of interventions that might be available. For example, financing is one thing that really benefits from various data. For example, carbon credit co-benefits require nature data, payment for environmental services. This is a results-based financing mechanisms where you can have a contract with local communities or farmers to conserve ecosystem like a forest. And once that contract is fulfilled, the farmer or local community can receive payments on it. So you can imagine that you need a lot of data and very robust digital systems to manage this kind of financing mechanism. Transparency is another one. We need to augment a lot of the data, the GHG inventory, with information also on the co-benefits of nature for better decision-making and planning. Forest monitoring is another one, supply chain traceability, environmental justice. So these are just examples of what kind of data, what kind of interventions are out there that really require very similar data. And so kind of to try to figure out what are these basic digital public infrastructure that's necessary, we had a multi-stakeholder roundtable over a period of 1 year. And we had, we really spoke with indigenous people, academia, business, and also governments to find out what are some of the core digital public infrastructure elements that are necessary. And today, the result of this is a study called the Nature ID. And Fresha, maybe you can pop in the chat the link to the study. I will not talk about this study itself today. I will just focus more on one of the elements of what might consist this DPI today. And Richemond, after me, will talk about another one, which is about the transparency system. However, this was kind of the backbone of what we tried to do to find out what is a digital public infrastructure stack. We call it a planet stack. That is very necessary for many countries to have so that they can build new solutions on top of it. And just to reiterate what Dario was saying, we try to build everything as a digital public good. If it's not accredited yet, we are always trying to look for ways of accreditation. It is, because we see that many countries share similar needs and methodologies. And this is particularly true for the environment sector because a lot of these policies are based on multinational agreements as well as from a scientific base. And so we try to build and maintain these open source code base of selected national systems as digital public good, so that other countries that come after the first country that used it can adopt and improve it also on the DPG code base, and we can keep getting better at it as a community. So I'm just going to switch gears and present the first solution and then pass it to Richemond for the second one. The first solution I wanted to share is about empowering producers on deforestation-free data. The question we faced earlier this year was that there is a new regulation called the European Union's Deforestation-Free Regulation, which is asking exporting countries to have to make sure that the commodities are deforestation free. And a lot of so when an importer imports from any other country, they have to prove that what the commodity that they're importing is all deforestation free. And in some countries, this poses a huge concern to the national economy and livelihood. For example, in Ethiopia, where which is one of the countries we worked with, 5 million households are producing coffee. And if there is any disruption to the export industry of coffee, especially given that a majority of it is exporting to the European region, it could really devastate the households and livelihoods of 5 million, up to 5 million households. And these are very smallholder farms. So it is a big issue for many countries. And the EU deforestation regulation, free regulation was extended, by the way, so that there's a little bit more time to prepare. But at the beginning of the year, many countries were really scrambling to try to figure out how they can comply. There's a lot of kind of incentives and like trust issues that need to be thought through to provide and update farmland data. And there's also kind of this risk that we always see that, once the data starts to be exposed, or it can be also held in the hand of a limited number of importers, for example, how can we avoid the data being exploited or inadvertently excluding vulnerable farmers that can't or that will have a hard time complying with some of these regulations? And also, we also noticed that there are many good global data layers. And for example, Global Forest Watch, and a lot of the EU side might want to have these global data layers as the way of verifying the deforestation free. But of course, if you zoom in, these are global data sets. If you zoom in at the plantation level or the farmland level, it will not reflect the real reality when you look at the farm level data. And also, we also wanted to know, can the same data be used for something that really benefits the farmers, like productivity? So we really tried to deep dive into this challenge, and we worked with three countries, Ecuador, Colombia, and Costa Rica. We also had Ethiopia as a fourth country that we had a South-South cooperation, and worked with the cooperatives, NGOs, the country governments and exporters, as well as some importers, to figure out what the problem is and how we can actually solve this with a DPI approach. I'll just briefly show this, but each country had slightly different challenges. But so we tried to figure out again what is some layer that each of these countries can use and bring it into their own national systems at a later time. We kind of had these key critical points and findings. I'll just briefly go through this. But first was a need for some kind of standardization in how to capture farmland data. I can talk about this for many hours, but I'll just keep it to that level. Flexible tools are necessary that adapt to the needs of each country. That was another one that came up. A scalable tool was also a need that came up, so that it doesn't rely too much on manual actions. A lot of times the data analysis and the manipulation took months to produce reports, but we wanted to try to reduce this to a few weeks at least. There was also a strong need from countries that they want to empower the producers to own their data and analytics. And there was a need for accurate and accessible forest layers, flexibility to integrate and evaluate different forest layers. Real-time analysis is necessary. Flexible ability to incorporate the required documentations, and this will change across time. And then structuring the information to build reports for the EUDR. This is a very immediate need. And then make sure that it's a low-cost solution. So we kind of had to go through a design thinking process to come up with what is it that we can do. So which, brought us to these 5 design principles. One, it has to be flexible and modular so that each country can take the module and build it into their own system and infrastructure. 2, it has to enhance the deforestation analysis while integrating artificial intelligence. The third was that it's a scalable solution to automate the process. For simple and usable, a lot of the users of this will be the producers and associations or local cooperatives. So we want it to be simple and usable. And 5, we have to make sure to take care of data privacy and good use of information. And so we kind of, again, tried to look at it as a layer. And you can see we tried to really, create it as a DPI and avoid holding all data inside the system. But so we had a way of creating everything with APIs or by data upload so that it doesn't become a big database of everything. And then the most critical layer was the plot validation. I will show you what it looks like. How to validate that the plot is not deforestation. I don't know if that's a verb actually. And then things like, producing a report or producing a validation, alert, those are a little bit more case by case. So those parts are up to the countries to decide and create later. And so this is how the system looks. I won't do a live demo because it kind of involves like uploading data. It takes a little bit of time, but it's very simple. Again, the interface doesn't really matter, to be honest, but we built this, basic interface so that the cooperatives can use it very easily. It's actually built in Spanish, and this is the English version of it, and it can be easily translated as well. So the first step is to upload your polygon data of the farmlands, right? Like some cooperatives have, I don't know, like 1,000 farmers in their cooperatives. So they have to, they collect that data as polygon data and they will upload it into the system. And right now it says upload with an Excel. We did that as on purpose, again, because a lot of these farmers won't have robust database. So they wanted it to be Excel so that they can easily manipulate the data. But you can also connect it as an API from the back as well. So this is how it looks like, the data. And then once you put it on, you can see that like it kind of automatically creates this kind of clean database where you can see that like there are some that have some overlap with each other. So this was one of the pain points that the farmers had, that you don't always have clean polygon data, and then it takes like months to clean it up. So now this is just test data, but you can kind of easily check that there's this, oops, sorry, overlap in the polygon itself. So then you can manually validate that this one is the correct farm data and this one is just not, is a mistake. And so after you clean up the polygon data, which again was a huge pain point that we didn't expect, we thought it's more advanced like AI stuff, but it actually was something very simple that had to be solved, and it really helped reduce a lot of time. You can then do a deforestation-free analysis with some different types of forest data. And you can see that there's different map layers already kind of connected into the system. A few of these are there's a Global Forest Watch, for example, and then there's a map from Ecuador. This was at the piloting stage. So we have all of the different national data layers connected. But in reality, when this goes into the country level, you will only see the global layers and then your country layer. But the Global Forest Watch and the Tropical Moist Forest, these are EUDR required data layers. So we have those, and then plus a map of the country, so that the national data, so that you can basically check against all three of them. And this is very important, going back to the first questions that we had, because a lot of these global data layers don't really show the reality, of course, for a good reason, when you zoom into a 1 meter, or 1 hectare resolution. So you can see that some of the official map says it's deforestation, but then others can prove that it's actually not. And so you can see this very easily on the map and zoom in, and then actually check where the deforestation risk flags are appearing. And then you can go and really easily correct or verify what is happening. And you can also, this is the data report import export part, which again is not the core part of the system, but it was a very much needed immediate thing that we had to produce. So this is the report that it can be produced. And I'm very glad to say that from some cooperatives from Colombia and Ecuador, they actually already used this report. The cooperatives were trained and they did produce this report and used it to already seal some deals with European countries. So some of the coffees are actually already somehow proven using this system. So I will stop here and pass it back to Daria, but thank you so much for your attention. These are some nice pictures from Ethiopia when we did the workshop, and then from Ecuador when we were doing the training. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Reina. Well, that's a fantastic tool. I have to say, I haven't seen a recent progress, in the environmental tools for a while, but this is so impressive. There are a few questions, but I think I'll reserve them for after Rich presents his part, and then we can go into discussion. So I'm gonna share the screen for Richmond. Just give me 1 second. Um, of course, as it happens, suddenly it's just
Mhm.
not there, but give me a second again. Mhm. Yes, you should be able to see it now, and Richmond, over to you.
Yeah, thank you so much. Good morning, good afternoon, colleagues. Um, Now I'm just want to present to you how we are working uh, as climate transparency team to support human security activities through our digital public good. Next, please. First of all, let me show you what is climate transparency. It's beyond absolutely accounting and reporting. Climate transparency is more than preparing some data and report to UNFCCC and make them available publicly. It's beyond all of that. The codex definitions based on the rigorous and open, verified reporting climate data policies and everything is the new way to track progress and monitoring everything related to climate actions and climate pledges. Uh, Under this process, we have the global mechanism operationalized by what we call the ETF, Enhanced Transparency Framework of the Paris Agreement. This is replacing the old system of reporting. We had previously some MRV based on biennial update report under the convention. And now we have this new enhanced transparency framework with common reporting tables, common tabular format, and modalities, procedures, and guidelines uniformized for everyone. And that will be used as a trust operations. The vehicle is the biennial transparency report, is the main vehicle to disseminate and officially announce the transparency report. And this is going through the national inventory accounting emissions and sinks, the mitigation actions and projections we are doing for NDC tracking. And we have also adaptation reporting, where we are putting in one documentation the risk and vulnerabilities occurred by climate change. And the last one is to report on support. Support, we are tracking FTC, financial technology transfer and capacity building, needed and received for developing countries and mobilized or provided by developed countries. And now the main shift is to move from opacity system existing by the past to a visibility that builds trust. So transparency is what we are calling the backbone of the Paris Agreement. It's a backbone of accountability in the global climate governance. Next. Now, how this climate transparency enhances human security. As you know, climate is completely transversal for everything we are linked to human and biodiversity, nature, everything. And under this way, we have like the keyword is resilience. And through this climate transparency data, we have we are protecting lives through early warning system and risk information. And under this one, a transparency data on climate risk, for example, floods, droughts, heat waves, allows timely warning to vulnerable populations, better preparedness and evacuation planning, and reduction in casualties and losses, for example. We are talking about loss and damage, and these loss and damage are key for human security and human well-being. Under this way, the human security impact is, for example, fewer deaths, safer communities, and better resilience. Back, please. We are still on the same page. So the second point of enhancement is to improve food and water security. Under this way, clear reporting on rainfall patterns, drought indicators, crops performance, water availability, etc., helps farmers plan planting cycles, government anticipate shortage, and avoid pressure on food and things and electricity, for example. Humanitarian agencies target intervention through on this security data. And under this way, human security impact reduced hunger, more stable livelihoods for people and families. The third one is to strengthen economic security. Economic security is key when you're talking about human well-being and human and social inclusion of everyone. And under this way, transparent climate finance is like is key. Transparent climate finance data and emission reduction progress builds, for example, investor confidence, guides fair allocation of adaptation fund to help most vulnerable community to be targeted and addressed with enough resources, helps protect jobs in climate vulnerable sectors. And under this way, human security impact is the stable incomes and sustainable development. The fourth one we are seeing under the climate transparency, how it's enhancing human security, is the reduction of conflict and instability. Initially, when we're talking about human security, we are always thinking about conflict and instability. And under this, when climate data is opaque, for example, and like manipulated, resource competition rises. And when it rises, transparency promotes the fair water sharing agreements, for example, to help everyone have a very fair access to water resources and natural resources. Trust between communities and, for example, promote evidence-based conflict resolution. Under this framework, this area, human security impact fewer climate-driven tensions around the world. The fifth point is the support to health security. Under this health, open tracking of heat, stress, air quality, disease vectors like malaria, dengue in many areas here around the world, and disasters impact helps health system prepare to be ready to like have a mapping of where we can have urgent intervention. Public health campaigns target high-risk areas, and also this helps urban planners reduce exposure to heat island. And this human security impact is fewer climate-linked illnesses, so people will be less ill and sick. The last but not least is how climate transparency enhancing human security through empower citizens and local communities. Accessible climate information enables, as you know, community-driven adaptation actions, a monitoring of government commitment, and stronger maybe environmental justice efforts. And human security is offer this climate transparency help human security to offer equitable participation and empowered low decision making. Next. Here are some examples on how climate transparency are in action supporting the human security. First of all, you have, for example, the early warning system in Africa under the African Action Plan 2023-2027, which is a very key document to help the African Union to better reduce mortality rates during floods, for example, and cyclones by providing actionable climate data. We have a second example, I put it here, is about the global landscape of climate finance data dashboard. As you know, the climate finance tracking tools such as open dashboards, ensure adaptation fund, reach vulnerable populations. And the last example I want to share with you here under this framework is the transparent NDC reporting that helps country coordinate mitigation and adaptation to protect communities, and by starting with the most vulnerable one. Next, please. Here is the example of what UNDP is doing in terms of gathering information and make it available to support the human security activities and priority actions. And here, as you know, this is the, I will in a few minutes show a demo, a short demo of this tool, but it's a system that is ready and implemented by many countries around the world, actually. Some have started and some others are already submitted something and is using this tool. It's offering full access to everyone, creating also some government users and observers can have access also to get information and use it. If you allow me, Daria, I will now maybe share my screen and share this with all of you now.
Yes, please.
Okay.
Yes, it's appearing, almost there.
Yes, it's appearing.
Yep, now we can
Very
see
good.
it. Yeah.
Okay, sorry. So maybe let me show you this here. I can put some information here when we are signing here. This is a dummy account for testing now. And when you enter here, you have this dashboard with KPIs, which are very, in 2 minutes, you can have a very good screenshot and capture what is happening in your country and how you can maybe better plan actions to use to work under the human security framework. And here you have climate actions, projects, financing activities, activities supported, mitigations, and every type of actions implemented in the area, particularly in the country. And through that, you have all details, information here that you can add. And where we can have also a validation process. Programs are also here available with everything. Project activities, you are tracking also support received or needed or maybe mobilized and provided to countries. And under this support, you can also know how this support have been channeled and which financial instrument have been also used. So it's very good to know what you have already in your pocket, what you already expend, and what is sometimes planned and pending to be received. You have here the key informations on GHG inventory, the emissions, the projections, and what is expected and everything. And you can do the configuration by yourself and try to make it available, putting standards and baseline, and do the reporting. This part is key and important as it allows to report using it for planning, for decision making, for fighting, for example, against some climate disasters and things that can affect human security on the ground. And you can export all of them. You can make them available also for climate reporting. I spoke here about the biennial transparency report, and this can be like extracted too to help biennial update report. If you are a bit lost, you can have here the frequently asked questions and some videos here to help you understand how to use it. It's a free open source, tool developed by UNDP with the extreme easy use, and that can be maybe configured by parties and countries to help them moving forward. So time is running. I can maybe stop here, and this is something you can use at any time. So reach out to us. Reina, my colleague Dominique, is also in the chat. She can provide some links to help you access this. Over to you, Daria. Thank you.
Thank you, Richmond. And Reina, if you can put your camera back on, so we'll move into Q&A part. Well, first of all, again, thank you for these presentations. And I'm looking at these both platforms, and I also really appreciate the great user design. It's looking good. I think like sometimes there are solutions in the like open source. It's not just open source to be honest, but like in open source also you download them and then you see like, okay, so it looks a little bit like it was designed 15 years ago, could be very functional, but still there is so much technology that's intuitive that seeing this like really nice user interface is just fantastic. But the first question I think is to Reina. So um, as you work and as you obviously have experience with so many different countries, different developing countries now, what's the approach in the countries that have low connectivity? How you collect data there? So it's both a low connectivity and also maybe the digital literacy skills may not be as advanced as in urban areas. Like even if we talk about it within the same countries, people in the remote areas may not be as familiar with technologies. So how do you address that in your work?
Sure. Thank you, Daria. That's a very important question. There are longer term implications and then shorter term things that we try to do. In the longer term, at the policy level, when we work on some of these environmental areas of digitalization, we would try to start from conducting digital readiness assessments and having some kind of roadmap for the sector to think about what are the implications of connectivity and try to support the planning in through partnerships and other ways of bringing connectivity to these local areas. One example is the Africa Mini Grid program. This is a big Global Environment Facility funded project that's working with 21 countries in Africa region. And it involves policy support to unlock mini grids, right? So mini grids for access to electricity. And again, electricity and connectivity often go hand in hand in terms of its difficulties. And so in that case, by doing a digital readiness assessment at the beginning and having a policy level overview of what are the gaps for advancing digitalization for the mini grid sector, we can start to use that as a tool to start to discuss with other donors or other development partners out there to also bring connectivity. And so that's one policy level approach that we take as UNDP looks at it with not just about the tool, but we look at the policy, the connectivity. Do you have a DPI? How are the people's digital literacy or even just literacy, access to technology? What is the business sector? And how's the government capacity? So we tried to take a comprehensive approach in looking at this issue. And then at a more, I guess, like near-term intervention. So we do try to, of course, make our tools very light. So if thank you for saying about the user interface. A lot of it is not built just by ourselves. Like with Richemond, we did a few workshops, for example, with people from different national governments to think about that design. And in the process, we always make sure that it's as light as possible so that it can be used by a wider number of people. And also, again, in the environment sector, we do use something called LoRa. This is just one example. When I was in Rwanda many years ago, we had a project that was working on early warning systems and trying to set up IoT sensors in areas that have low connectivity. And so this was done as a hackathon with youth entrepreneurs and innovators in the country. And so in that case, some of them came up with different ways of tackling this, like using radio or also using something called LoRa, which is, I think, low frequency bandwidth. So it doesn't go through the internet, but you can have a way to connect as a mesh network and send the data to where it needs to go. So there are those kind of, it's not a root, it won't solve, again, the root problem. However, because a lot of these environmental like biodiversity information is in areas that are not the most priority for connectivity. We do try to use this kind of different ways of technologies as well. So I'll just stop there. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for that. I know, Richemond, do you want to add anything? You can, yeah. So another question is for you then, about the transparency portal. Can you expand a little bit? So it allows to report on different targets, and the reporting is usually done by countries, right? And if this is deployed by the community, so how is the infrastructure essentially working? Do you target policymakers and then help them to deploy in different communities, and then all this data feed into the master, system for reporting? Or, yeah, essentially, what's your approach there?
Okay, so the main approach here is what I try to explain early. It's that we have many layer of responsibilities and many layers of users that can contribute. It's a national platform, and as a national platform, it implies to have every people, many various stakeholders, putting informations in the same platform with an administrator and try to make it available for everybody. One key point is that we made it very light and accessible with a friendly interface to make it accessible and very light for people to understand information and data, even if it's for a high level people, policy designing and policy makers, and also if it's also for a Lambda user on the ground who wants to maybe get data and information before before starting his farming activities, for example, or if it's everything. So at this stage, it's a very useful data and platform that implies a very wide, like a web, like a web to try to get informations in one platform and make it available for climate reporting. The first point is that countries are committed to report on BTRs, Biennial Transparency Report. They need to have some light tools available, not something they need to pay or try to have some complex infrastructures, but very light that they can just adapt to their own reality and extract some information to easier the reporting obligations they have on the UNFCCC. But beyond reporting, as I said, it not only for reaching the commitments or just respect your word to submit something to UNFCCC. It's to have a clear view of what is happening in your country and help mapping interventions to prevent human disasters, for example, or to prevent sometimes some crisis in the country and continue secure humanity. So this is one thing I would like to add to this point. Over.
Thank you. And then, so we're almost done with the time that we have allocated, and since it's Friday, but also on another day, I would say the same. I don't want to take more of people's time because so many of us have other meetings scheduled back to back. Having said that, so just the final question that you probably saw it coming, and Reina, you briefly touched on it, AI. Now, it's dominating a lot of digital related conversations right now. And then we also, seeing so much research now that's still, of course, being developed on the environmental impact of AI. But that makes you think it's like, well, you don't want to apply AI just because it's trending and it can do some things that actually maybe a simpler tool can do. And given again that the impact of using AI on the environment is much higher, so that could be the bigger road. But so just the question really to both of you, I don't know if both of you want to answer, but do you see the need, or are you exploring the integration of AI in the tools that you were talking about?
Yes, definitely, Daria. And Richemond has a lot of ideas on this, by the way. We've been discussing this for a while. But yes, UNDP is looking into the use of AI specifically for both of these tools. The one I presented, Mombo, that one is already using AI generated data. And of course, the ultimate kind of not a goal, but I guess ultimate thing that we want to target is to start to apply AI to the actual data that is coming up from the ground. So again, the system is designed in a way that once the country has enough data, they can start to apply AI for example, predicting which areas might be more risky for deforestation, or like, what kind of behavior actually it seems to be leading to high productivity of crops. So that is definitely already in mind. And for example, Costa Rica already uses AI or they are starting to pilot the use of AI for creating their own deforestation map and having a localized algorithm. So I'll stop there and pass it to Richmond. But just one thing to say, we do have a kind of a greening the blue guidance note that we prepared for the use of AI so that we can correctly guide colleagues in UNDP, but also it's open to the public when we want to not use AI. And if we were to use AI, what are the things that we want to be careful of so that we can mitigate the environmental impact, which includes energy, but also fresh water, as well as others like, e-waste and minerals. So there's a whole supply chain about AI environmental impact. So I'll try to pop that in the chat as well. Thank you.
Yes, what I would like to add is that quickly, AI is for human and not human for AI. So it's very important as what we are going is to try to use as much as possible how AI can help us doing things better. So for example, using AI to try to help us to understand what is happening around us with data we are providing, and maybe to use them to make projections. It's not something new. When we are using IPCC software, it's a sort of previous AI, for example, to make calculations and have scenarios and results and everything. So it's not something new, but we are trying to improve existing AI to better work on and prepare very good digital public goods for making decisions and help us better understand what is happening in our world. So over to you. We are making improvement with AI, of course.
Thank you. Well, and with that, we'll conclude today's webinar. Thank you so much, Reina. Thank you, Richemond. Thank you, everyone, for joining. I think if anyone had questions on the relations of human security to environment, so that should have been addressed now, and it's pretty much inseparable. This webinar was recorded. You will receive a link that you'll be also share. Will be sorry, that's right. We'll be able to share with everyone. It's gonna be an open link. We'll share the presentations, we'll share all the links and the tool Reina mentioned on, thinking about AI and its environmental impact and how you would guide your decisions. So that's fantastic. So we'll share that as well. Thank you, everyone. Have a good rest of the day. Have a good weekend. Thank you for joining, and we'll see you in other sessions. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.